65 million years ago, dinosaurs were the dominant species on planet Earth, on land, in the air, and at sea as well. They came in various shapes and sizes. Dinosaurs ate grass, and others went out to hunt, a land that was restless and teeming with activity and life. Mammals at that time were like weak dogs. Most of them were no bigger than a cat, so they had no choice but to know their position well and put their tail between their paws like any weak dog and dig a hole or find a place to hide themselves so as not to be prey. This was the golden age of reptiles. But one morning, suddenly, nothing happened. It was another normal day, but what was not normal was what was happening in space when Jupiter managed to attract a large asteroid the size of Mount Everest into its orbit. But the asteroid managed to escape and head directly to planet Earth, and within a few days it would arrive there. If we assume that the dinosaurs were watching the sky, they will see something new appearing in the sky, shining like a star and getting bigger every day, until one day it appeared like another sun, and it started getting bigger and bigger and bigger until the dinosaur realized, oh shit, it's not getting bigger, it's getting closer. At a speed approaching 60 times the speed of sound, this asteroid crosses the atmosphere within 1 second and collides with a coast near the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. The asteroid is destroyed and releases energy equivalent to millions of nuclear bombs that exploded at the same moment. The thermal radiation resulting from the collision reaches tens of thousands of degrees of temperature. It travels at the speed of light, burning everything it encounters within a radius of 1,500 kilometers. The Earth's crust was blown away as if it were a liquid, and a crater 25 kilometers deep and 150 kilometers wide was formed. This caused materials equal to 60 times the size of the original asteroid to fly out into space. The collision caused an 11 magnitude earthquake that shook the entire planet. This was the most violent earthquake the planet Earth had ever witnessed. This massive earthquake caused a huge volcanic eruption in India that lasted for 30,000 years, during which the Indian subcontinent was covered with lava. Although there are several studies that say that the volcanic eruptions were not caused by the asteroid but only happened with it. Whatever happened, the worst has not happened yet. The asteroid collision caused seawater to rush backwards hundreds of kilometers, forming tsunami waves up to 1 kilometer high. This height is greater than the Burj Khalifa, which reaches a height of 800 meters. These waves are not only higher than the highest towers we currently have, but they are also higher than the towers we will build in the future. Drowns everything it encounters hundreds of kilometers from the coast. And let me tell you, all of this and the worst has not happened yet. The debris and materials that flew and penetrated the atmosphere, part of it headed into space and collided with the moon, but the bulk of it returned to the Earth due to gravity, and on its way back, its temperature rose due to friction with the layers of the atmosphere. When it reached the Earth, it caused the temperature of the entire Earth to rise as if it were oven for a few minutes, killing many creatures instantly. Not only that, but these burning embers led to the outbreak of huge fires all over the planet and continued for months, which led to the death of most of the dinosaurs, either by burning or suffocation, and they had no way to escape except to hide in a cave or bury themselves to avoid the fires and all of this, and the worst has not happened yet. Materials emitted as a result of collisions and fires are trapped in the atmosphere, blocking sunlight from the planet, plunging it into complete darkness with no source of light except the fires that burn the planet. This leads to the death of most plants that depend on sunlight for photosynthesis. But when the fires go out, the temperature drops dramatically, and the world enters an ice age that extends for decades. This leads to the death of 75% of the species on the planet Earth, and ultimately to the death of all cold-blooded dinosaurs that derive their body heat from the heat of the surrounding environment, and thus, the age of dinosaurs has ended. This theory, developed by Dr. Luis Alvarez, Nobel Prize winner in physics, and his son, geologist Walter Alvarez, is the closest to being true among a group of other theories that do not have strong evidence to support them, as they found a layer of the Earth containing large quantities of the element iridium, and this element is rare on Earth and often comes from space, with some other evidence of fires, debris, and volcanic eruptions in the same time period. But the Earth refuses to forget those who ruled it for millions of years. Some dinosaur corpses fall into a sea or a swamp, and clay, sand, and ash quickly deposit on them, preventing their decomposition. The minerals in the water and sediments seep into the bones and replace them in a process called mineralization, which turns the bones into a mold of stone, but it takes the shape of a skeleton. It remained there until an earthquake or flood occurred that revealed one of the planet's secrets. Although dinosaurs and paleontology were discovered recently, humans have known about fossils since ancient times. When humans dug wells or plowed land, they found fossils. But because of the large size of the structures and their fossilization, humans interpreted their existence as giant, rocky monsters with one eye, and this produced the myth of the Cyclops. When the ancient Greeks found skeletons of a protoceratops dinosaur, they interpreted their presence as a lion with the head of an eagle, and from here, the myth of the griffin was formed. When the ancient Chinese saw the structures, they called them dragon bones, especially since they appear after thunderstorms. They said, this must be a dragon that was condemned to death and came down from the sky and was burned. To this degree, it was difficult to believe that they were creatures that inhabited the earth in ancient times and were all extinct. Although there have been several attempts to explain the existence of these fossils, this drawing was the first serious scientific attempt to study them. This drawing was drawn by the scientist Robert Plot in 1677, or he ordered someone to draw it, of a giant thigh bone. He described it accurately and wrote his theories about it. Robert's first interpretation of this bone was that it was of a creature that existed in ancient times and became extinct. He said that it could be the bone of one of Hannibal Barca's elephants that he brought to occupy Rome. But there was a puzzling question. If this bone belonged to one of Hannibal's elephants, how did it reach the British Isles? He concluded that this explanation was illogical. But it was the thigh bone of a giant man.
Are you serious?
At this time, no one objected to believing in the existence of giant men. The important thing is that this bone was lost and remained the drawing. After Robert, several studies appeared of fossil teeth or bones, but no one knew what they were or what creature they were until a small incident happened. A woman named Mary Ann was walking around outside and found a strange rock shaped like a tooth. Normally, she would have left it and gone, but this woman was the wife of the doctor and paleontologist Gideon Mantell. She said that this could be a fossil, so if I took it home, my husband would be very happy with it. Although there are opinions that say that Mantell was the one who found it himself. The important thing is that he got the tooth. After studying, he concluded that this tooth belonged to an unknown extinct animal, giant, vegetarian, and lizard-like. But he did not have any evidence for any of these conclusions, so he consulted a friend of his called William Buckland, who advised him not to rush until he collected sufficient evidence. Indeed, Mantell listened to his advice and continued studying for 3 years, collecting evidence and consulting his scientist friends. One of them told him that this molar resembles an iguana's tooth. Mantell liked this analogy and decided to name his discovery Iguanodon after the iguana lizard. Now that he had collected sufficient evidence, he was ready to announce his great discovery, but he was stabbed from behind. His friend William Buckland, who advised him to postpone the announcement of the discovery, was preceded by his own announcement of the discovery of the bones of a mysterious, giant, extinct lizard. It turns out that Buckland was studying a jaw similar to a crocodile's jaw, but different and much larger, so he named the animal he discovered Megalosaurus, meaning the great lizard. The situation has now become more complicated. Who discovered dinosaurs? Is it Buckland? Mantell? The wife? What we conclude is... Seriously, the scientific community considers Buckland to be the one who discovered the first dinosaur, and he is the first to announce and publish research on this. But until now, there was no term dinosaurs. Yes, there were 2 discoveries of ancient creatures, but they were not enough to establish a special classification for them in the animal kingdom, until Mantell discovered a 3rd lizard, which he called Heliosaurus. Then a scientist named Richard Owen decided to add a special section for these creatures and called them dinosaurs, meaning terrible lizards. Hence, the door was open to a whole branch of discoveries and research related to dinosaurs. Everyone who had fossils who did not know what they were now knows that they are from extinct reptiles called dinosaurs. But the largest share of these discoveries was made by 2 scientists called Edward Cope and Othniel Marsh. Cope and Marsh were American paleontologists, friends, rich and wealthy people, and they were digging for fossils, and the situation was so good among them that they would name their discoveries after each other as a form of appreciation. Until a dispute broke out between them, no one knows the reason for it, but it started a war of bones between them. The hostility between them turned into a race in research and discovery. Each one of them wanted to surpass the other in the number of discoveries, to the point that out of haste, they would publish their research without scrutiny, which was sometimes about already discovered fossils or animals other than dinosaurs. The dispute between them reached childish levels. They would sabotage each other's work, steal fossils from each other, insult each other in the newspapers, and harass each other at excavation sites. But despite all this, the disagreement between them led scientific research forward. Collectively, they discovered about 140 dinosaurs. That is, most of the dinosaurs that we know today. If you like the video, do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Have a happy time. Goodbye!